Talk Money to Me is a financial podcast produced by TransGlobal. All opinions expressed by the host and guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of TransGlobal. This podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be relied upon as basis for investment decisions.
Hey everybody, welcome to Talk Money to Me, where we talk about money and how it affects you. I'm your co-host, Jonathan, and I know a little bit about finance.
And I'm your other co-host, Tracy, and I know almost nothing about finance.
We have two wonderful guests with us today. I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Hi everybody, my name is Franklin Su, certified financial planner and a little too honest for my own good.
Hey everyone, my name is Daniel Wang and I'm a financial advisor.
Today, we're going to be continuing our discussion on investing, but our main focus is going to be about risk.
I've been looking forward to this episode because I am so scared of investing.
Daniel, would you be able to start us off on what are some of the more common risks or types of risks that we could think about?
Yeah, no problem. The main risk that we look at, or that most people look at, is whether you will lose money. The thing is that losing money isn't the only risk that is in the market. So say you're invested, right? And money's in, say, a stock. But all of a sudden you have a bill that suddenly came up that you forgot about maybe, right? You don't have enough cash on hand to purchase it. Would you be able to sell that investment to pay for that bill, right? And that's what we call liquidity. Access to your money, how fast you can turn that investment into like cash.
Let's just say if, Tracy, your parents have an emergency tomorrow, maybe a medical emergency, and they need money right away, $100,000. Do you think it's easier to sell $100,000 worth of stocks and have the money available, or is it easier to sell the home that they own if they need to and try to get $100,000?
It feels like it should be stocks.
You are right. Because
Okay.
when you sell a stock,
Congratulations. Ding, ding, ding.
yes, gold star right there. But if you sell a stock, it's T plus 2, meaning the trading day plus 2 more days, you can take the money. But when you sell a home, think about it, you have to go to escrow, and depending on the buyer, they might have contingency. It could drag on for months. So that's the purpose of liquidity.
All right.
What I do want to talk about there is though, like, what risk are you taking? Because I feel like after Frank says that, it's pretty cut and dry, or it sounds pretty good for stocks. It makes a good case for stocks, where it's like, oh, I can earn a lot. Also, it's very, very liquid. So why not just invest all my money into stocks, right? But there's also the risk of losing your money.
Right. I mean, even as you were saying that, me being risk averse and associating stocks with gambling, I think to myself, like, my house, I know, like, it's going to be a certain value.
Right.
And it feels more stable, right? But like potential, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that, like, a house equivalent of money from whatever I invested in stocks, because at any given day, it feels like it's going to be an up and down roller coaster.
A simple way to look at risk would be to look at potential return, to look at safety, and to look at liquidity, and place them on 3 ends of a triangle. And now you pick 2.
Oh no, but then it's so unstable. Triangles are stable.
So typically with anything in the investment world, you can't really have your cake and eat it. If there was something that had very, very high like earning potential, was also extremely safe, and you could cash it out at any time, it was really liquid, everyone would just invest in that, right? That would be the only thing people invested in. But unfortunately, there really isn't something like that in the world. Right, so the best we can do is kind of have a give and take. If you are chasing something with good return, but also offers safety, right? You might look at a house, right? Because it's an illiquid asset, something that you can't really sell really quickly for the funds, right? So you're giving up liquidity for a good return and for safety. But if you're looking for good return, but also highly liquid, you might look at stock.
Then what about that last option where it's really, really safe, it's highly liquid, but at the cost of the potential for growth? Is there a real life example for that? Just straight up cash?
Yeah, there's a CD.
Certificate of deposit.
Savings account.
Cash. money market funds. They're usually dollar to dollar equivalents. Bonds, debt securities. Those are usually, you're able to sell those relatively quickly.
Keep in mind though, if you invest in bonds, unless it's US Treasury bonds, there's still a potential that you could lose your money.
Yep.
If the company you invest in, or if the local government you invest in, the bonds I'm talking about, goes bankrupt. For example, I believe San Bernardino, they filed for bankruptcy a few years back, Mission Viejo as well. So a lot of people who mistakenly were told that, oh, bonds is a safe place where you won't lose money. Well, unless you're investing in US Treasury. And keep in mind, this sounds ridiculous here, but even investing in US Treasury could lose money. If Uncle Sam one day say, hey, we can't pay our interest, then the US goes into default, I'm talking about the US government, then yeah, you can lose money investing in US Treasury too. We just think it's highly unlikely.
It is.
That's all. Investing in real estate, in order to make outsized return, you have to take risk too. I'll give you an example. Whoever bought real estate in, let's say, for example, Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, if they bought these houses in 2004, 2003, right now they made a lot of money, 6 to 7 times their money at least. But if you think about it, 20 years ago, these places weren't nearly as developed as now.
I think we are looking to explore options that have high potential return, potentially helping our listeners understand how to wisely give up a little bit of the safety sort of side of the triangle in ways that are not completely chopping it off and knocking over the tripod, right? But like in ways that are still somewhat safe. So what are some sort of tips that you have?
Yeah, so number one is understanding what stage of life you're in right now. Are you in the accumulation phase or the distribution phase? Meaning, are you still working, trying to accumulate assets, trying to grow your retirement funds? In this case, you can try to take a little bit more risk for a little bit more potential return. If you're in the distribution phase, meaning you're already retired or you're within 5 years of retirement, then at this time, trying to take extra risk for that potential extra return might not be worthwhile. So that's the first part I will consider. And then number two is to understand your limitations. If you feel that investing, watching the market is something you don't want to do, then just put it into index funds. It's simple, it's easy, right? You get the return that you will desire, and it's usually pretty good. If you're interested in investing, then I would recommend start doing a lot of studying, and those are the places that I will start thinking about if I were to start investing in stocks.
Well, Frank, actually, I wanted to ask too, okay, so what if someone is in the accumulation phase of their life, but they are extremely risk adverse? Would they be able to look at something with like a decent return and relatively safe, like lower on the risk scale by giving up liquidity?
That's a great question, Daniel. I personally feel that the millennials and the Gen Z has been dealt a pretty lousy hand. And what I mean by that is after 1970s, when US government came out with the ERISA rule, what it essentially did was it took the burden of retirement planning from the companies and the government itself and put it squarely onto the shoulders of the people. Of course, the baby boomer, they were able to catch the unprecedented 30-year bull market in stocks, bonds, and real estate. Mm-hmm. So you can see that's why baby boomers pretty much hold the majority of the wealth in the United States. However, if you look at millennials, right? When the older millennials, they experienced dot-com bubble, the 2008 financial crisis. The younger millennials, maybe financial crisis, but definitely the COVID-19 crisis of this year. Mm-hmm. So now we face a lot of people that are overqualified, underemployed, need to make money to save up, but don't have enough to save up. And then also facing the same parallel issue, which is asset bubble. Right, because of the Federal Reserve policy lowering rates, real estate price kept going up, even in the crisis. Stock price keeps going up. So millennials and Gen Z are definitely left behind. If you ask me, how can a young person with no connection, no money from the previous generation, achieve financial freedom, make it ahead, so to speak? I would say they have to really stomach the risk now, because when you're young and you take risk, if you make it, you make it. If you don't, you still have a long time to recover from it. But then if you play it safe your whole life and then wait till you're 50 or 60 years old, then realize you don't have enough to retire and the government and the company you work for doesn't have your back, then you're really screwed.
So your answer to risk averse people is stop being so risk averse.
I would say it's, sorry to sound so somber, but I would say it's to take calculated risk. And if you don't know how to take calculated risk, at least understand how it's taken. Once you learn how to take calculated risk, then when you interview financial advisors, you can see if they really know how to do it for you or if they're just BSing you.
When it comes to taking calculated risk, you had mentioned about how people need to learn how to take those risks. I would want to take a step back first and ask, how do you calculate risk? We were able to establish that there's these kind of 3 points of a triangle, and we need to pick 2 out of the 3. But how do you determine if this is a healthy amount of risk, unhealthy amount of risk? Where do I go?
The way I see risk is this. Let me ask everyone a question, including listener. If you're old enough to go to Las Vegas, and when you go to Las Vegas, do you mentally keep a budget of how much you are willing to lose before you completely stop gambling for that trip?
I do.
No.
Yep.
Although to be fair, because I don't have that number, I don't gamble.
It's until my debit card company calls me and says, "Hey, your balance is 0."
No, Dad.
I'm just kidding.
Listeners, right now, as you know, don't do that. Disclaimer. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, see, now you see right here, this one simple question, we already find out who can tolerate a lot of risk, who can tolerate some risk, and who never thought about risk management.
Hey. Are there any sort of like current trends that most financial advisors are saying to people or like using to convince people, and like things I can be watching out for when I hear things like that sound really convincing, but maybe have a catch or maybe aren't as pretty as it sounds?
Buzzwords?
What I will look for is hidden fees. Or sometimes they say, we're not charging a fee, we're giving you a free portfolio. Well, guess what? Maybe the portfolio contains a lot of mutual fund that charges high commission, or maybe these mutual funds belong to that specific bank, so they're selling you their own products. Either way, you're being charged whether you know it or not.
Going off that, actually, I think that there's a healthy balance as well, right? There's it's not like advisors are going to sell things that don't pay them. They're not going to you don't expect to go to your job and work for your boss for free, right? So advisors need to eat as well. But there is a healthy balance of providing something that is beneficial for both the client and for the advisor, where the advisor can provide a service that is actually beneficial and suitable for the client while also making money.
Would you say that then when looking for a financial advisor, it's important to kind of like, besides knowing yourself, also really kind of know where this financial advisor is coming from, sort of like what their motivations are or what, what they're looking for.
If they suit you.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to look for. It's like going to a barbershop or a salon and getting a really bad haircut. Maybe they don't know how to cut. Maybe you walk into a salon and it's a men, like Tracy. Maybe you walk into a salon and it's a men's barbershop, but you really need a haircut, and they cut your hair really bad, right? You went into the wrong place, or you went into somewhere where they specialize in something that wasn't suited for what you needed.
since we know that we can only kind of pick 2 out of the 3 points of the triangle, we choose which risk we're going to give, right? The liquidity risk, the safety risk, or the potential risk. Is there kind of a way to determine when it is good or bad to take some of those risks?
It's really based on your time horizon. The younger you are, the more risk I personally think you should be more willing to take, because my view, and when I talk to my friends, the common question is, they say, hey, I don't have a lot of money, but I want to invest. I don't want to lose any of it because it's not a lot, like, right? But I tell them that, like, in the grand scope of things, in like 10, 20, 30 years, the amount of money, the couple $100 that you're losing, if you were to lose all of it now, that's like a drop in the bucket. If it's money that you can afford to invest, if it's not money that is being applied towards your living expenses or things that you actually need to pay for, it's worth maybe taking a little bit more risk and seeing that money grow over the years.
That's a good point. It's really on how bad do you want your dream life. That's pretty much it. I know it sounds subjective, but that's the world we live in, especially the investment world. We try to put exact science on it, but it doesn't really work that way. A lot of people say millennials are the me generation. You know what? That's not a bad thing, because you have to plan out what's best for you.
I think I used to associate financial people with people who are obsessed with money. Right. And what you're describing is actually kind of the opposite, which is people who are aspiring to be free from money, right? Free from the obligation of making money, right? In a specific way. The term diversification gets thrown around, right? Is that something that we should also do and pay attention to?
Well, I think we're living in an age where we can have customized sneakers, customized suits, and customized dresses. Of course, we deserve a customized financial plan, right? I'm pretty sure everyone agrees with that. And when you talk about diversification, that goes to the customization as well. A lot of times I see in the traditional financial world is that they use this cookie cutter strategy. And this cookie cutter strategy, they call it diversification, but in my opinion, it's diversification. The more they diversify, the worse it gets, right? So then again, it goes back to, well, how much do you need the money to grow? The money as in the money in your bank account. And how fast do you need it to grow to achieve the goal that you set for yourself? Then based on that, you can decide how diversified you can be.
So it sounds like good risk management is staying focused on your goals and making sure that every piece of your portfolio is working towards the goal that you've set and sort of not losing sight of that.
Exactly.
Yep.
With that, we'll go ahead and draw this episode to a close. Thank you so much to our wonderful guests for sharing with us today. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.